Good morning, everyone. Under the aegis of 50 years of Indic-language computing, we welcome you all to Reverie Language Technologies and NASSCOM's Center of Excellence for Data Science and AI's second NLP Masterclass in Indic-language computing, of course, under the AI Pathshala banner, which is supported by the Government of Karnataka and Startup Karnataka. Your coaches for the day are Pranjal Nayak, who will be talking about the display and editing challenges and best practices for Indic language computing. And of course, a very power-packed session with Chandan Bhagwati, who will talk about the essentials of building input tools for Indian languages. And also, don't forget, there's a quiz which awaits you in between the sessions. And as I said, please throw in your questions to the Q&A panel. Each of the questions will be answered after the individual sessions end. On that note, I welcome aboard Pranjal for his session.
Thanks, Swati. So I'd like to just say good morning to everyone who has joined in, although you guys can't speak out on the platform. So a very good morning to everyone. So today also we'll be covering few basic courses, and I guess from the last session we know that the people are very eager to jump into the advanced courses. I would like you to hold on to the enthusiasm for the next session from when we are going to start our advanced courses. But before I even start off the sessions, I would just want to urge everyone to be very attentive on these sessions. You may not be able to understand the value of these sessions at this point, but once you go along and have done the rest of the sessions, you will know how and why the basics are important and where they hold you in a good state. Although not all of this you will be needing, but as a part of the precursor of the advanced sessions, these are sessions which are important to know, and we at Reverie have definitely benefited with this knowledge, and our teams have also, all our teams have benefited with this knowledge. So we thought that we would design it as a session like where we start off with more say more preliminary sessions, and then move on to the advanced sessions, which obviously most of the people today would be more looking forward to. I'll just be presenting my screen. So Swati, just give me a cue if it's up.
Yes, it is, Pranjal.
So hi everyone. So today I'm going to speak a bit about Indian language display and editing, and some certain challenges that we face and some of the best practices which we could follow. We had talked about display in our last session, and I believe most of you remember. We'll take a bit of a recap on some of the points which are needed for today's session, and also talk a bit about editing, and I'll set the stage for our next session by Chandan, which will be around building an input tool, and how and the nuances of Indian languages to be kept in mind while building an input tool. So this session will probably set the stage with certain principles which are needed to be kept in mind while doing so. So there could be certain linkage. So I'd like you guys to just keep these things in mind for the next sessions as well. So before going into the challenges or the display nuances or the editing nuances, just let's look at a couple of things. Just let's look at the basic differences between English and Indian languages. So in English, the characters are linearly placed, right? So in display, you will find it in the same order as the order of how the characters are appearing. So if a word is say like talk, so you will find T, A, L, and K in the same order as in the display sequence as they are written, right? So, but in case of Indian languages, it is not always the case. And also in Indian languages, characters do join and form different composite characters, right? So So basically, basically what I wanted to explain was that in English, each character is an independent display unit. So like every character, be any alphabet from A to Z, be it small case or uppercase, any number, any symbol, they can exist on their own, and they are not dependent on any other character as such. But in Indian languages, the display can be formed from a single character, which could be a vowel or a consonant. It could be combination of characters. And also there are certain characters which are dependent character and which need certain independent characters to be able to display. So if you look at the last point here, so Indian languages have some characters which independently are not legal display units. So these are known as dependent characters. So these are basically your matras and your modifiers, like we had seen in the last session. And these basically are illegal representations when they are represented on its own or independently, and hence to show that they are independent, sorry, they are illegal representation, the dotted circle is being used. So we had talked about the dotted circle in our earlier session. So it basically signifies that what is following or preceding, or what basically what is attached to the dotted circle is an illegal entry by itself, and the dotted circle just represents imaginary consonant, so that illegal character is legalized from a display point of view. So let's look at one example. So this is one message which I shared in a WhatsApp group, and this is how it went from my Android phone, so which is running on Android P, and this is how I see it on the display. But two of my friends got it on their phones, and this is how they see it on their display. So you see that there is a difference in the display, although both of them are using iPhones. They have different in versions of that iPhone, and they do see those display differently. So why I'm showing this, right? So the reason for showing this is that there are certain principles of display which we had talked about earlier, and we are going to do a little bit of recap today as well, which are not really followed by all systems, and which leads us in creating combinations which are not legal. And when you have a system which is actually following it properly, you see it different from another system. So what it does is you don't see you don't basically read it same on the two different systems, which creates an interoperability issue. So if I have sent the message from my Android phone, I would expect the person receiving on the other end, be it him using an iPhone or a Windows phone or maybe a feature phone, whatever, they should be able to receive the message and read it in the same way, right? But they don't get to do it. So that's one issue, and it all stems from that the display systems are not based on the script grammar which we had talked about in our last session, and we are going to talk about that in my subsequent slides as well for today. So as I said, just let's do a very quick recap. So on the last session, we had learned about the different types of characters for Indian languages. So vowels, consonant, matras, modifiers, elements, numbers, and other punctuations. So here I am just enumerating them, and just from a display point of view, just presenting to you which are the independent characters and which are the dependent characters. So basically your matras are your dependent characters which cannot exist or cannot be rendered on its own, and similarly are your modifiers, which will be the Chandrabindu, Anuswar, Visarga, etc. So and also the halant. So quickly again going through the script grammar. So I'll not spend much time on it. We have discussed this a lot in the last call, so or the last session. So just quickly the display syllable. So display syllable is the smallest unit which can be displayed independently. So in case of dependent characters, that is where the dotted circle comes in, so that we can display that dependent character independently. So you had gone through the valid display structure. Will not go through that as much in detail right now. So moving ahead, so what the script grammar tells us that there can be only two different types of valid syllables, which are vowel syllable, which you see certain examples here, and then the consonant syllables. And any word can only be composed of a valid vowel or a consonant syllable. Matra and a halant can only follow a consonant. A modifier can follow a vowel, a consonant, or a matra. An independent matra, modifier, or halant has to be represented with a dotted circle, as I mentioned already. So this was a bit of a recap. So let's move ahead. So certain display rules. Certain Indian display rules, and these display rules actually govern all the Indian languages apart from Urdu, which is written in a written in the Pseudo-Arabic script. So Indian language display has to follow script grammar and be formed by valid display syllables. So we talked about script grammar. So all the display has to definitely follow script grammar. And in case of, obviously, in case of invalid, say, input or an invalid character, it has to be displayed through a dotted circle. So all dependent characters must join an independent character or a combination of independent characters. So if a dependent character does not have an independent character to join, it is rendered with the dotted circle. So I mentioned this quite a few times, and this is a very important concept. The dotted circle is a very important concept. So another rule is that a matra cannot follow another matra. So in case a matra is occurring after another matra, it must be rendered with a dotted circle. So I put in certain examples here. If you look at the Kannada example, so you may feel that, okay, by putting those two matras, you can form a third or a different matra, but that's not how it should be. The matra has a single representation, and you should represent it with that single matra and not by a combination of matra. So as we learn in schools about how matras join to characters or join to consonants, only a single matra joins, right? So in this case also, only the first matra will join and form what we known as the Barakhadi, and then the other matra and the second matra is an illegal combination in this case, right? So that matra is then rendered with a dotted circle as a correct rendition. So these display rules are followed by certain display systems currently, but certain display systems do not follow these rules. And that is why you saw in that example where I was showing the message which I gave in my WhatsApp group, and then two people receiving it or seeing it differently. The second person actually saw how it should actually be correctly rendered, but what it appears as if there is an issue in that device rather than the ones from where it was sent and the earlier version of that iPhone, right? So moving ahead, so a few more rules. So no matra or mark from one script can join another script character. So it must be rendered with a dotted circle. So if you are writing anything bilingual or displaying anything bilingual where you finish with Hindi and then start off with say Gujarati, so you cannot have the Hindi ka, a word finish with a Hindi ka, and then you start off with a Gujarati e matra, and that e matra joins the Hindi ka. So that's not allowed. It needs to be rendered with a dotted circle. So a vowel or a matra must be produced with only one Unicode value and not a combination of two or more Unicode value. So this is the example which we had used in our last session, right? So you remember the normalization examples, right? Where we had used home as an example where the O was written with a A and a matra. So all such cases we normalize. And from a display standpoint, no vowel or matra should be allowed to be produced with more than one Unicode value. Each vowel or matra has their own unique Unicode value, and that is what should be used while producing it. In case it is being written with a combination, those need to be normalized. Matras and marks should join proper consonant of a conjunct in case the consonant does not join with the next consonant and is retained in the halant form. So there are cases where even if we are like joining two consonants, they don't join and form a different shape. So like the examples here of sports and gaddi, so they don't really, the ta and sa do not join. Ta is the half ta form is shown by a ta and a halan, and in case of gaddi, the two does do not join. Although there could be specific font designs where people may do stacked displays where the two does may join in with one the appearing below the other, but there could be other fonts where they do not join. So in case they do not join, the matra has to appear on the specific consonant to which it is attached. So in the example of sports, right? So ra halan, so it is actually sa halan pa o ra halan ta halan sa. So basically ra halan is attached to ta, and hence it should be displayed attached to the ta. Whereas in gaddi it is like ga da halan da e. So the e matra is attached to the second da, and since they are not joining, it should be shown as joined to the second da. So there are some other challenges in Indian language display. So font design or correct font design is one of the key challenges. Although we did speak about script grammar and display systems needing to implement script grammar, which would correct most of the issues which do appear in display. But there are issues which script grammar cannot fix and which are related to the design of the font. So if you look at this example closely, so these are two different sequences and these are from two different fonts. Actually, I have applied two different fonts to create this image and to explain this. So these are two different sequences, but when we are using the first font, both the sequence look the same. Although there is a slight visual difference in the Chandra Bindu and say Adha Chandra and the Bindi appearing with it in the first font, but for any casual user, they would read it as Ka and Chandrabindu on top of it, right? Whereas the second font actually renders it properly and has Ka and Chandrabindu appearing as Ka Chandrabindu, and the Ka with the half Chand and Bindi appearing uh, as two different parts, as the matra is being followed by the modifier, which is the correct way of rendering. So a correct font also plays a very important role, and this is one of the challenges in Indian language display. The availability of good quality and non-erroneous fonts is one of the challenges, and we had spoken about this on length in our last sessions. So coming to the concept of zero with joiner, so you guys would remember that we had touched upon a little bit on the zero with non-joiner. Uh, so on the use of zero with non-joiner, right? So Iski introduced the concept of explicit halan. So I'll just read this out what Iski put out. So halant is used between consonants to form conjuncts. Many times in Sanskrit and Vedic text, one may wish to show an explicit halant which would be shown on the previous consonant and which would prevent the consonant from joining the next one. So like if you have ka halanta, it will join and form a ka ta conjunct, right? But if I am to have ka halant appear and then the ta appear, so what Iski did at that time was they tried to do it with two halants, which would signify that the halant is an explicit halant and the consonant, the first consonant does not join the second consonant. So how we are doing it today is by the use of the zero with non-joiner. So the zero with non-joiner basically is a character which uh, is used after the halant, and what it does is it prevents the consonant first consonant to join with the second consonant. So mostly zero with non-joiner is used to in representing English words which are formed from two words. So here are some examples. So zero with non-joiner is frequently used in writing South Indian language words, specifically Kannada and Telugu more. In Malayalam, the presence of the Chillu characters prevents the use of zero with non-joiner in most of the cases. And in North Indian languages like Hindi, Gujarati, and all, so even if there is a word like where you have a word like airport, and you write it with a full r, people will still read it as airport. But in a South Indian context, you need to, or in say from an East Indian context, you need to put it as an explicit halant. So here are certain examples of where explicit halant is needed, and currently in a Unicode scheme, we represent them with a 0-bit non-joiner. So let's move ahead to certain editing challenges on Indian languages. So looking at editing rules, right? So one of the first rules is that the cursor movement should be only allowed over a syllable and not a single character. So if you look at it, so if if you look at the left side image, and my cursor is after ma, and then I press say the right arrow, and it should jump over ra and r, because ra and r together form a syllable and not ra and a matra alone, and that's why the first or the top version is the correct representation, or the correct behavior of the cursor rather, and the second is as a erroneous behavior. Pressing delete, and I'm talking in a context of say Windows machine where we have a delete and a backspace. So I could not take both contexts, like a Mac device and a Windows device. So the context is from a Windows device, just so that you are aware. So pressing delete should delete the full syllable, whereas pressing backspace should only delete one character. Now why is this? Why is there a difference? I mean, if pressing delete should be deleting the full syllable, then pressing backspace should also be probably deleting the full syllable, right? So why is there a difference? So let's understand why the difference is. So deleting only a single character does not create illegal combinations, and still displays a valid syllable in case of backspace, right? So when you press a backspace, even if it deletes a single character, so it will not create any invalid syllable. But if you look at the case of delete, if you delete a single character, it's going to create illegal combination. So you could have cases where you are at the start of a conjunct, as was the case in the example that you see in the screen. And in that case, if you press a delete and only a single character, which is ka, and this conjunct is from ka, halant, and sha, and if only the ka gets deleted, so you are left with halant and a sha, and which actually creates an illegal combination. But in case of backspace, there is never an illegal combination which gets created, and hence in backspace you can actually have a single character being deleted, but in case of delete you need to delete the full syllable or the full display syllable. So continuing with the editing rules, so select, cut, copy should select a full syllable and never break a syllable. So similar to cursor movements, since the cursor movements have to be over a full syllable, so while even doing any sort of select, copy, or cut, it should be on a full syllable. So the top version is which is correct, and the bottom is which is wrong. It's pretty similar to the example which we had taken when I was showing on the cursor movements. So one important thing, like while editing, the cursor should always remain in its logical position, and the correct characters after the cursor cannot join the characters before cursor to form a conjunct or ligature. So if you see on today's say display system, so if you see on a Unicode display systems, or most of them, at least if you see on them, so if you are starting off with a character like sorry, a word like kripa, and you have the cursor after the kra, and then you press a backspace, so what happens is that it appears that okay, the ka halant ra, the ra gets deleted, right? And half curve joins with the per, and it forms a shape, something which is shown on the screen. So it forms that sort of, and the cursor appears at the end, but it just appears at the end. It's not that the cursor is actually after the arm after. So if you resume typing on this state, it will again start typing after the ka and halant and before the per character. So this is actually a wrong behavior where the cursor is shown at a different position and the actual cursor is in a different position. So the below image actually shows how the correct behavior should be. So let's look a little bit more deeper into this. So why we have that as a problem, right? So while displaying, say, any Indian language sentence, a word with a cursor, what should actually be the display philosophy is that the display should happen as a two-part display. So all the characters which are before the cursor should be taken in a single chunk. Those should be displayed, and then we should start from the characters which are after the cursor, and then display them. And while doing those display of the first and the second part, obviously draw the cursor after the display is being done on the first part, get the width of that first part, draw the cursor, and then move ahead and display the second part. So why is it that there are issues in systems which are there today? So what happens is that the display systems which exist as of today, so most of them treat the Indian language display as the same way as they treat linear display systems, like any European language or English. So they treat it as the same way. So all display systems, what they do is render the whole sentence. I mean, they would render the whole sentence and then try and draw the cursor. The text rendering and editing are disconnected systems. So what I mean by this system, this sentence is that, so rendering will not be connected to the editing. So by that, what you mean that basically, if you are in the middle of a character, or your cursor is in the middle of a word, right? So your display should also be formed in the way that, okay, it should keep in mind that this is a different part to the part which is after that. But that's not how it happens. What it happens is that the display happens only on the sequence of characters which are available, and then the display is being formed. After that, depending upon where your actual cursor is, uh, then where your actual cursor is, the systems would try and see the width onto which the cursor should be placed, and then they would place that cursor at that point. In most of the systems, what they do is, while calculating the width, they will take the full syllables, and hence in the example that I showed here, you actually have the cursor in between ka and pa, where it is lying after ka halan. But since the widths of the systems are calculated, or the display systems calculate the width on the full syllables, they calculated the width on the full syllables, and since the display system actually calculated it for the whole sentence, or the whole word in this case, what it did was that it found it did not have the demarcation that there is some characters before the cursor and there are characters after the cursor. So it took the display unit, full display unit, and found the width of that, and then drew the cursor after that, wherein actually the cursor is in between. So this actually leads to two problems. What it does is, since the rendering and the editing are disconnected system, so it allows for the pre and the post cursor characters to join, and which creates unintended shapes, because right now as a person, I was editing on one syllable and I did not want it to join to the other syllable, right? Because I am editing there and I would like to make a correction on that syllable and would not want it to join. So that's one effect which it does. It creates joins and creates different shapes. And as an effect, what happens, the cursor image is drawn at a position where it is actually not. So That's what it does is basically, if you look at it closely, what happens is that once I press backspace here, I should be having a go and a Holland, after which I should be able to add something else. But what it does, it already, because the display is not related to the editing, it joins the whole word and creates a full display, and then tries to re-render the cursor, which shows the cursor at a different position to where it actually is. Okay, so that's about it, which I had on the editing and the display rules. We had covered a lot of this in the earlier session, so I kept it a short session. And now I'd like to open the house for any questions, and we'll try and answer whatever we can.
Thank you, Pranjal. That was very, very interesting. I think there are a couple of questions on the Q&A panel already, Pranjal, if you would want to answer those.
Okay. So I have one question here, like which tool is our NLP based one? I could not really understand exactly like what the person is asking here. So I'll probably, you could probably rephrase your question like what on this, because I could not really understand this.
I think that question was from Mufadlal.
Yeah, right, Mufadlal. So could
Could
you
you
please
repeat that question, Mufadlal?
rephrase this so that I could try and attempt to answer that? So we have another question from Rushabh Jinde. I hope I got your name correctly. If not, sorry for that. So how to create and use custom corpora by classifying unlabeled text data into labeled and label data of custom classes. So Rishabh, I would request you to hold on to this question for our next couple of sessions, at least have certain attend our next sessions, which would be more around this sort of a topic. So it will be more relevant at that time. So right now, what I would say from the sessions that you have attended till now, what I would say that any corpus which you are correcting must be normalized. So that's something which the sessions have told you till now. So, and on trying to classify the corpora into something which you can use from a NLP or from any sort of machine learning perspective, I think there are sessions which are going to happen next week and week subsequent to that, which will be more around machine learning and AI and ML, and it would give you more perspectives. And if the questions still remain, I would urge that you put it at that time. So for now, what you should take away from the sessions which have happened from the introductory session of Vivek and the couple of short sessions which I have taken, is that for any corpus which you are taking from any source, right, you need to normalize that corpus so that it gives you the best possible results uh, your uh, in your NLP tasks, basically.
Pranjal, if you could just give a brief again, maybe 2-3 lines on normalization, on the process of normalization, that would be fantastic. Just to refresh the memories.
Right. So yeah. So first, the basic rule of normalization. I'm sorry, I'll have to take Hindi examples. I am not able to take any thing on any other language right now because I won't be comfortable doing that. So the first rule in normalization is that in Indian languages there will be many characters, and I think my slides today also had certain references to that. Is firstly, you need to normalize any vowel or a matra which is being composed by two or three different Unicodes. So like you could have a vowel getting composed with a and a matra, o vowel getting composed with a and a o matra, or a and a matra. So those sort of things you will need to normalize. That's the first level of normalization. And also you'll need to normalize the nukta characters. So wherever exists, it will not exist in all Indian languages. So whichever languages it exists, it need to normalize that. Secondly, there would always be nasal forms, like the word Hindi itself, you could write it with a choti ki matra, na halan the e, or you could also write it with a choti ki matra, bindi the e. Both of them are perfectly correct forms, and there is nothing wrong in either of the forms. But it's just that if you can normalize those to any single form for your NLP activities, what it will do, it will just remove redundancy of data. So imagine you are trying to create any trigram model, say any trigram model for any activity. It could be a very basic activity like say a prediction algorithm, or any autocorrect, or next word prediction sort of thing, right? So you could have a trigram model for any sort of predictions sort of things, right? Any language model. So what would happen is that, yeah, say you have a sentence like इसको हिंदी में कुछ कहते हैं, something like that, right? So इसको हिंदी में becomes a trigram for you, right? So but you might end up having two trigrams, because there could be a occurrence where in one place where इसको हिंदी would have come, the Hindi would have come with a na halant, whereas in the other place it would have come with a bindi. So, and you end up having two forms, although it's not something which is creating any errors to your data, but what it does, it unnecessarily makes your data heavy, and it creates different forms. So from your NLP algorithms, any output that you produce, you would like to have them in a single sort of a form, which makes it say makes it more relevant, right? So or makes it more consistent rather. Yeah, Swati, that's about it in a nutshell. And of course, there is the use of the zero with joiner and the non-joiner. Zero with non-joiner, obviously you need to retain, because in case you need to produce them as display forms, you need to retain zero with non-joiner. But more for most practical purposes, zero with joiner, as I had said in my last session, you could just ignore those zero with joiners. Those are just from a display variance sort of a form, but zero with non-joiner is more used from a sort of form where you are trying to produce two joined words, and mostly used for English joined words sort of thing. So that you may need to retain. And depending upon the sort of NLP, you may also can ignore zero with non-joiner as well, but that I cannot comment as a thumb rule. It has to be depending upon the NLP activity that is going to happen. So say in case you are likely to just produce a search, or I mean, you are likely to use certain things for a search, then while normalizing, you could easily normalize and remove the zero with non-joiner as well. And while doing any search also, the input itself, you could normalize and remove the zero with non-joiner. That does not matter, because you are just storing that as indexes, right? Your original document already exists. So depending on that, you will have to take you will have to take a shot at how you want to implement, or how you want to normalize for zero with non-joiner. Zero with joiner, you can actually ignore for most practical purposes.
Thank you, Pranjal. All right, all our NLP enthusiasts, it's time for our short quiz. So, Robin, I would request you to open up poll questions. And we have exactly 10 minutes to finish this off. Thank you, Robin. Amazon gift vouchers to the top 3 winners. Come on. Another 5 minutes to go. Last 30 seconds. All right. So Chandan is all ready with his very insightful session on designing an Indic language input tool. But Chandan, is there not a Swanik story before that? So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give all our ears to Chandan Bhagwati. Thank you.
Thanks, Swati. So, hello everyone. Hope you have had fun in answering the quiz, and those are not so tough. I hope. Uh, let me set the agenda first. The agenda today is well, if you want to create some Indic input tool where you want to create some keyboard or any Indic input tool. So what are the things basically you need to consider, which are exclusive for Indian context, for Indian languages, which are not, you will not be able to visualize the same thing in English keypad. So those points which needs to be considered, that we will discuss today. And let me tell you, the whole discussion is based on the experience when we built our Swalek keypad. So Swalek keypad is a touch-based keypad for Android phone, Android devices, and the fact is that the specializations of this keypad is that in this keypad you cannot type any junk character, any wrong typing. That whatever that Pranjal has already shown, what comes in the display, or what are the things that happens basically while typing, those kind of junk input are specifically handled or specifically prevented in our keypad. So before sharing my experience, I'll keep sharing my experience or sharing how we have done this in our keypad. Uh, we'll start from what is our current different typing system and different input system that is available. So let's go inside. So essentially, if you need to classify different input methods apart from writing on pen and paper, if there is any input type for digital platform or any other machines, so there are only three types of input, which are native input, phonetic input, and typewriter input. So we'll come one by one. We'll visit one by one, and we'll see how does they work, and what are the different limitations or different things that we need to consider for each kind of typing. So let's see, when we are talking about uh, this typewriter input. So typewriter input is the oldest one, that since typewriter is older than computer system, today's digital computer system. So this is the oldest one typing system, where it is basically, it doesn't follow what we call today's Unicode standard or any that kind of standard, but it basically consists of either a single character, or it's a part of a character. It is shape based or image based. Different shapes are available in different keys, and either you type one character, or you mix up or you combine 2-3 different shapes to create a character while typing. And today's computer systems are much more intelligent than handling the character and handling the processing the text. So most probably this is a obsolete system, and we don't need to think about this at the current moment. So the second type of input is phonetic input. Phonetic input is, if you see that I try to type a word Prakrit, where I wrote it, I typed it using English uh, transcript, English script, that where I write Prakrit, and I'm expecting the output in my preferred language, where in the first image, the selected preferred language is Hindi, and the second one is the Kannada. So you are giving the same input, and you can expect the output in your preferred language, and that is called the phonetic typing. But while you talk about phonetic typing, the limitations that although phonetic typing is very popular among the community, or among the people who are comfortable with English keypad, and who knows uh, English alphabets, for them this is a suitable, or this is a very popular type of typing and input method. Or but there is another limitation here, is that whatever the output you are expecting or you are getting in your preferred language, that is completely dependent on the phonetic conversion algorithm that has been implemented inside the keypad. So in this case, if I say ki I was expecting something like prakrit, where ka and ra should be become kra, and there is a e matra prakrit I was expecting, but in the conversion logic it is giving me prakrut, where ka with a re matra. In that case, I do not have a choice to change it. I can only select any of these options, whatever is coming, suggesting uh, by the keypad, but I do not have an option to change it or to modify it for my use. So that is one limitations for phonetic typing. And the second one, as I already said, key to use the phonetic typing, it needs that English convergence. So when we talked about Indian context, so there are two group of people, or two category. We can categorize in the two group. One is who knows English literate, and one is who doesn't know English. So if you see that ratio is basically very big, like English speakers are less than 10% as per statistics. So in that case, uh, along with phonetic typing, native typing is very important to enable the user, the native user, who can type in uh, native language, in their own language. So let's go to the native typing. Now, before going to the native typing, we should remember, and we should go back to our school days. So I hope most of us have learned in our school, in our mother tongue, at least. Even if you are in English medium or any other medium, still your mother tongue was one of that subject, and you learned your mother tongue in your school. And while learning your mother tongue, I think these are the three things that you need to learn. You need to learn before you compose a word or you write a word. So you should have the knowledge of Varnamala, you should have knowledge of Barakhadi, you should have knowledge of Yuktakshar or Conjuncts. And if you know these three things, then you will be able to compose any word in your language. So we'll go to our school days, and we'll learn, we'll reiterate these things, that what are the things that called Varnamala and Barakhadi and Yuktakshar, and then we'll come back to typing system. Now see, Varnamala or alphabet. Here there are two examples, one Hindi and one Kannada. So Indian language alphabets consist of vowels and consonant. So there are two groups. One is vowel, one is consonant. So in the consonant group, it is divided. It is divided into multiple vargas and or class. That vargas means class in English itself. So it is classified into multiple vargas, and each varga consists of 5 characters, except Tamil. Tamil in each varga in Tamil, it doesn't consist of 5 characters. They consist of 2 or 3 characters only. So for except Tamil, for other languages, all vargas consist of 5 characters. And for its 5 characters, if you see that there are 2 characters where the pronunciations are shorter, or you need less effort to say, like for example, if you say for the ka varga, if you say kaga doesn't need much effort, but when you say the kha nga, for these characters you need more effort or more emphasis. So based on the pronunciation structure or the sounding structure, it is classified into 2 forms. One is called alpapran, and the second one is the mahapran. So pran, everybody knows what pran is. It's like your soul, or your breath, basically. So you need shorter breathing for saying like kaga, and for kha you need a longer breathing. So that's why it is classified as alpapran and mahapran. So keep in mind these 2 terminology. Basically, we'll revisit it, that what is the significance of alpapran and mahapran while designing keypad. So at present we are visiting only the Varnamalas, and going forward in the subsequent series, subsequent slides, we'll talk about their significance in designing your keypad. And now this is the consonant part. And well, if you talk about the vowels part, so in Indian language there are 12 vowels, and these vowels have 2 representation on 2 form. One is the independent form, that what you see in the Varnamala, that is O A E. It is written, and you can use it anywhere in the text independent of any other characters. That are the vowels. And there is a dependent form in the main in the sense those dependent forms cannot be placed standalone or anywhere else. So these dependent forms are always preceded by a consonant. So this dependent form, the dependent form which followed by a consonant, we called it matra. So vowel, and the dependent form is a matra. So while adding a matra into a consonant, it modifies the sound of that consonant. So for OIE, that or for each vowel, what are the dependent form? If you put it if in any consonant, after any consonant, then it will modify the sound of that consonant, and that refers to the Barakhadi. In the Barakhadi, what happens ki, let's say for example, for characters like ka, when you put this 12 matras, it modifies the sound like ka, ka, ki, ku, like this. So it is applicable for all the consonants, and this is the form of Barakhadi. So after learning the alphabets, we need to learn this Barakhadi for all Indian languages. And after learning the Barakhadi, you need to know the specific few specific form of like it's a conjuncts. We called it conjuncts or Yuktakshar. Why it combines 2 or more consonants to form a different character. So these are the conjuncts. So we need to learn this. These are some examples for Hindi and Kannada, and for other all Indian languages, these forms are available, like in their writing system. So once you learn this alphabets, then your Varakari, and after that your conjuncts, you are ready to compose words, and you are ready to write a word. Let's say we start writing some word. That first word is akshar. Whether you write it in Kannada or write it in Hindi, that doesn't matter. But it consists of those basic components, like there is one vowel, there is one conjunct, sure, and one consonant. So one vowel followed by one conjuncts and then followed by one consonant. This becomes a word. Actually, uh, if you look at this another achar or another word, that is ankush, here also it is same as a, ang, and then consonant followed by matra and then another consonant. So these are the basic form when you write a word. Like these are the basic components that you use while writing a word. Now you got to know how the writing system happens and how we learn to how to write. If you need to translate this to a digital keypad or input system, transforming that writing system to input system, so you would have so far realize that whatever Pranjal had spoken in his session or the previous session about script grammar or rules, language rules, that language rules we have applied those unknowingly or knowingly, we have applied those language rules here as well. So you can derive it like ki any word can start with a vowel or a consonant. Hmm. And consonant and the vowels are the first thing that you need to know, and those are the things that any word starts with. And then you know that the matras, what we call matras are followed by consonants, so matras cannot exist independently. So only uh, a matra can be followed by only consonant can be followed by matras, or matras can be preceded by any consonant. That is one rule. Third rule is that we can combine two or more consonants to form a conjunct, and we join it using Holland. So these are the basic rules that we knowingly or unknowingly, those are the basic rules we follow in our writing system itself. And then when it comes to our typing system, we forgot those things. We forgot those things and we do mistakes while typing. So what are the common mistakes we find usually in typing while we type in any digital system? So what we do, you mix up with vowel and matra, because we are more concerned about what it is displayed rather than what we have typed. So here uh, arm, which consists of a vowel and ma, where somebody wrote it like ki o, then amatra and ma. But we learned that the matra cannot be followed by matra cannot be preceded by vowel. So in that case, this is a wrong typing. Similarly, for o matra, we do this way. We type a matra and then a matra, and it becomes visually it looks like a o matra. And here again, that some matras like top matras and bottom matras, if you type again and again, if you add more than one matras, visually you will not see any difference. You will not see any difference visually. But when you see it in terms of the as a sequence of characters, how computer process the text, that it's a sequence of characters. If you see that there are more than one matra here, there are more than one matra here, and it gives multiple issues already Pranjal has talked about that, and the interoperability problem. When you copy this text to a different editor or different platform, you see that it is coming properly, there is no problem. Again, this is coming properly in this platform, but when it copied to a different editor where it is showing like this. So as a result, there is a problem of interoperability, there is a problem of processing the text. uh, there are multiple problems that may arise, and you can easily, if you follow these rules that so far we have talked, you can you can easily prevent these issues, these mistakes, and that will lead to what? That will lead to one thing, that will lead to help us to create a good content, and which has a very uh, impact in the long run. That is a very good impact in the long run, because we are talking about NLP processing, and for NLP, you need lot of text data for text based NLP. And in that case, when you scrape or when you collect some data, if you get this kind of error, this may lead to a different kinds of problem in your NLP process. So rather than you need another effort to normalize and to rectify these kind of issues. Rather than that, if the source, if in a source where input is given, there we can stop it and we can prevent it, then you will get a more good quality data. So let's say while building our Swalek keypad, how did we try to prevent this kind of typing? And as I said earlier, that in Swalek keypad, it is so that you will, even if you try to type a wrong pattern or wrong combinations, that whatever we have talked so far, you will not be able to type such wrong pattern. So once you land to any text box or any text box, this is the layout where you will get this layout. In this layout, you see that only the consonants and the vowels are available. So since we talked about any word can be started only with consonant and vowels. So you may saw this transition key. Once no is pressed, the consonant is pressed. So what happens? The keypad dynamically converts, and it changes, the vowel changes to matras. Why? Because there is a probability that a consonant can be followed by a matra more frequently than followed by an independent vowel. So that's why it immediately changes, and you get these matras in the first layer itself. Now here you can again see that once the matra is typed, that O matra is typed, it again converts to this vowel form. So now, as we saw earlier, we discussed that this matra cannot be followed by matra. So that is one rule. So we should follow that, and you should not give any option to type another matra after typing a matra. So this is a thumb rule. So so far these are this is how we have implemented our Swalek keypad, where this kind of rules and Indian language rules have been applied, so that we can create a good quality content. And while creating content, we should not make mistakes which may lead to different problem going forward in the future. So this is how we have implemented it. Uh, let's go to another problem in the sense. So I talked about the conjuncts. So conjuncts are the combinations of two or more consonants. So while we are talking about cha, it is a combination of ka and sha. And how do we combine it? How do we combine it? We combine using the halant character. Halant signifies that a combination of two characters, and it becomes a conjunct. Similarly, tra is like ta halantra. So, but in some cases, what happens? We need some words where we don't want the character to be joined and become to make a conjunct. Rather than that, we want explicit halant, like in case of Ridrog. So we want a hard stop, that after the, and these are very easy or we intuitive when we write in your writing system. We just write do and then that dash, that Holland, and then we start the remaining characters like rogue, rid, rogue. So but in this typing system, what happens once you put that Holland will be used as joiner, and it will join both the characters and it will become different characters. So how do you handle such problem? So already Pranjal has talked about joiner and non-joiner. So joiner and non-joiners are basically two invisible characters, and you cannot give any such kind of information to the user while typing, because this is more or less technical. It gives the information to the display system that whether we need to join two characters or not, and it doesn't matter for the end user. Actually, end user doesn't know whether we are putting joiner or non-joiner, and since there is no representations, it is invisible, so you cannot put any symbol, specific symbol. So what we did in Swalek keypad is we introduced to different kind of symbols to use, uh, like when you need to create a conjuncts, when you need that specific, just a Holland, you used it plus symbol, this symbol. So if you type like then plus and so, then it will become sure. But in cases where you need that explicit Holland that we talked about, the example Hydro, in that case what you can do, you type this explicit Holland, you type explicit Holland. What it will do, it will put a Holland character along with a zero with non-joiner. So that will prevent joining these two characters in the display system, and it will show as an explicit Holland. And that is how we handle this. So let's go into another interesting fact. So previous slide I talked about this Alpapran and Mahapran. So you already know what is called Alpapran and what is called Mahapran. The interesting fact is that if you look at the Wikidump, you will see that Alpapran are most frequently used, and comparatively, if you see that Mahapran characters are less frequently used. The frequency of occurrence of this character in the text corpora in Wikidump is very insightful, and it gives you that insight that all the Alpapran characters, those are used more frequently, and all the Mahapran characters are used comparatively less frequently. So what does it mean? What does it mean? If you are building a typing system, in the typing system, user, there is a probability that user will type this Alpapran character like ka, ga, cha, ja more frequently than the remaining characters. So that's why you need to make sure that these characters are more accessible. Whatever the Alpapran character, that should be more accessible than the other characters. So that's how we designed our keypad. Uh, all the Alpapran characters are in the top layer. When you land to the editing window, you will see all the characters are available, and most of the time they will be there. And all the Mahapran characters where probability is lesser than this Alpapran characters, those are placed in the shift layer. So you will be able to use this, type this by accessing through shift. Once you press shift, and you will get these characters. But basically, since the probability of typing these characters are more, so it should be accessible at all the time to the user. And another fact, language, Indian language specific fact fact is that Indian users are either bilingual or trilingual. Few of them are trilingual as well, and most of them are bilingual. So if you see that people can speak more than one language, and people can also type more than one language. For example, in my case, I can read, write Assamese, Hindi, and English. So in that manner, we found that few of them are trilingual as well, but most of them are bilingual. So if they're bilingual, and we when you design a keypad for them, you should ensure that uh, there is a easy switching, or there is a easy accessibility between the language as well. How in Solid keypad, you can see in a Solid keypad, you will be able to view that in the right top corner. In the right top corner here, there is a button where it is written as or it based on the language, it will show you button. So what happens, when you press this button, you get these options. So you can access the native typing, you can access the English, and you can access the phonetic typing. These are the three way of typing that you can access directly by pressing this key. And when you need to switch the language between Indian language, like if I need to switch between Hindi and Assamese, then I can easily long press on the spacebar of the keypad here, spacebar where it is written Hindi, and then that long press will give me the selection of languages where I can easily switch between language. I can select any language. So I don't need to go to the language settings. I don't need to download another keypad for another language. Uh, so within the keypad, I can easily switch between languages, switch between modes, and it is only 2 click away. That is a one feature that we emphasize for Indian language or Indian language user. So so far we talked about that following the rules, different rules that is exclusive for Indian language, the issues and the nuances that are part of Indian language, and you'll not find that kind of issues for English. And there is another difference between English and Indian language is that English is linear. When you type, you can type A, B, C as many times as you, it will go one by one, and you can easily move across the characters using the cursor. But in case of Indian language, what happens, it is non-linear. So there are lots of complexity. We call this complex script. And so what happens while typing, the typing speed is compared to English, it is lesser. It is lesser that in typing in Indian language. So supporting the user for fast typing or giving facility or accessibility for fast typing is utmost importance for while you are creating any keypad. So the tools, that common tools that we use for fast typing is like we use autocorrect, which is prevents that spell errors. So earlier we talked about uh, lots of language specific rule error, breaking the rules, like combinations of characters and combination of vowel matras, etc. Now apart from that, there are some errors that comes, and some mistakes that usually user do are spell errors for Indian language. So for that, autocorrection algorithm or autocorrection features should be there. Along with that, we should provide progressive prediction and next word prediction for Indian language. And while giving prediction, what should we consider? We should consider that for any language, the common English word like computer, kitchen, and any word that we use in day-to-day basis, that should be there in our prediction algorithm or prediction logic. So we usually call it uh, English words, but whatever the terminology is, but we should put it in our prediction algorithm so that user can easily type those words as well. And specifically, I would like to emphasize on the autocorrect part. So, because there is a big difference, there is a difference between the autocorrection algorithm or the autocorrection, the nature of errors actually, nature of mistakes done, spelling mistakes done for English and for Indian language. Usually for English, that nature of errors are basically measured or taken care using distance algorithm. That distance algorithm may be in two kind. One is that edit distance based on the input text. We calculate the edit distance and we will try to the relevant word. And second one is the distance of the position in the keypad layout itself. Like somebody may try to type some characters like U and mistakenly they touched the character I, and uh, because of that the whole character whole words become wrong. And so we can rectify that using that distance algorithm as well for position distance. And edit distance can help us to validate the word, whether it is a valid word, or if not, what is the nearest match kind of. But if you see the error or mistakes, the typing spelling mistakes done in Indian language, you'll uh, these are completely different kind of mistakes, and these are not any kind of these are basically the phonetic mistakes that people usually do. That phonetic mistakes in the sense ki same sounding matras, like rather than that using bari and choti or bariu or chotiu interchangeably without knowing their significance, and some same sounding characters like ta and ta. And similarly, instead of consonant just typing two consonants, instead of typing conjuncts, typing two consonants without halant, and misplacing the modifier, that on or modifier, that gives a different output. So due to this kind of errors, and most of these kind of errors are like phonetic in nature, and we need to consider while you are providing autocorrect algorithm or while implementing autocorrect algorithm for Indian language. So rather than thinking about or using distance algorithm, we should give preference to these phonetic mm, issues, phonetic mistakes, and we should consider this while creating such kind of algorithm. So I can summarize the this autocorrection. What are the things we need to consider while creating autocorrection algorithm? That here that edit distance is not a relevant method for Indian language context, and phonetic closeness of characters should be considered, and confusing matras should be considered while designing spell checker. Again, you should check the presence and absence of the Holland. Why? Let's say if you want, even if you want to use that edit distance kind of algorithm, that case where these two namaste and namaste here, because the system recognize or treat that Holland as a individual character, so it may not give a good result or a relevant result while you are doing that edit distance algorithm. um, so that may gives leads to a different problem. And all these problems what we are talking about is that these are common for across all languages. Although I'm sorry if somebody doesn't know Hindi or they're unable to relate it, but most of the examples are from Hindi. But this kind of issues or mistakes are prevalent in across all language. So apart from that, there are some specific issues as well, like for Hindi and for some North Indian languages, whatever Chandrabindu and Anushar, that people use it interchangeably without knowing the significance, and sometimes it is used wrongly. So these are few problems. So with this uh, this is the end of my presentations or my session actually, and I actually tried to share my experience and the this problem. So there might be multiple other problems or other things that we need to consider while designing a keypad, but these are the issues that we need to consider specifically, that is exclusive for Indian language. It may not be relevant for English keypad or any other language keypad, but for or when you design a keypad for Indian language, so you should consider this message and these issues for better usage or better user experience. That I can say, and with that, I'd like to close it. So over to Swati.
Thank you, Chandan. It was like a trip down memory lane, right? Barakhadi, Varnamala, Kakka, Kiki. I'm sure it was the same for most of us here, right? If you have any questions, please put it on the Q&A panel so that we can address the same. And our next week's exciting session will be on transliteration and neural machine translation for Indian languages. We would have another 5 minutes for any Q&As, which we can address, and then we call it a day. We've already shared the recording for last week's session, and we'll send this week's session also via email. It will be available on NASSCOM's Center of Excellence for Data Science and AI's YouTube channel as well. So do look forward to that. If any questions, you might want to raise your hand or put the question on the Q&A panel. We'll be happy to address the same.
So Swati, I would like to add one thing.
Sure.
We have received a few questions here, and most of the questions are related to that core NLP. So I'd request you to hold on this, because we don't want to jump directly to NLP problems or different ML or DL issue problems solving. So we are like designing this courses that we can ground up, we can build up from the basics, and so now it is going to be one level up. So far it was like basic understanding of Indian language, and now it will level up one by one in the subsequent series, and you will get to know different DL and ML problems in the subsequent series. So maybe you should stick to the multiple courses, multiple sessions, that is upcoming sessions, so that you will get to know all these things. Like just jumping to NLP problem, rather than doing that, you can go one by one.
Sure, Chandan. So I don't think we have any questions. So we will close the session now. Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you, Pranjal. Thank you, Chandan.
Thanks, Swati, and I'd like to thank all the participants, and do look forward to our next sessions. I think most of you are NLP enthusiasts. So, I mean, we have designed the sessions, as Chandan mentioned, we've designed it in a way that they culminate at the end of the session. The final session is something which most of you might be looking forward to, but it is good to go through all the other sessions. There are learnings on how we have applied, and these first two sessions were a little bit basics. Now you could probably from the next session look forward to how we applied certain pieces around these basics and other NLP nuances. So that is something which you can look forward to from the next sessions, because those would be on specific topics, or rather on specific say technologies basically, and how we have applied some of our earlier knowledge. And you would come across things like normalization again when the other speakers are talking about, and they will stress how it has helped them and all. So do look forward to those sessions. So we look forward to you joining us for all of those sessions as well.
Thank you, Rashmi, for your compliment. So yeah, very correct, Pranjal. As they say, acceleration is something which is a step-by-step process, and we are, taking those rungs of the ladder eventually till our last session on March 16th. So we'll close the session now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.